Most people believe money is complicated. They believe it requires constant calculation, perfect timing, advanced knowledge, and endless effort. They assume that if they feel confused, anxious, or overwhelmed around money, it must be because money itself is complex. But that belief is incomplete. Money is not complicated. The mind dealing with money is. If you've ever felt stressed making financial decisions, if you've ever earned money but still felt unsure, if you've ever known what you should do yet couldn't bring yourself to do it, that is not a money problem. That is a clarity problem. Most financial mistakes are not caused by lack of intelligence. They are caused by noise, emotional noise, mental clutter, short-term pressure, fear disguised as logic, urgency pretending to be an opportunity. And here's the quiet truth few people are told. Money responds to clarity long before it responds to effort. Two people can earn the same income, read the same books, and have access to the same information, yet their financial lives move in completely different directions. Not because one is smarter, but because one thinks more clearly under pressure. Clear thinking is not about being calm all the time. It's about seeing what matters and what doesn't when it counts. When the mind is unclear, everything feels heavy, every decision feels risky, every choice feels loaded with consequences. You hesitate, second-guess, and delay. You either act too late or act too fast. But when the mind is clear, money becomes surprisingly simple. Not easy, simple. The wealthy are not immune to fear. They simply don't let fear run the decision-making process. They don't need perfect certainty. They don't chase constant stimulation, and they don't confuse motion with progress. They train their minds to think clearly, not through motivation, not through force, but through perspective. Clear thinking creates space. Space creates better decisions. Better decisions compound quietly over time. This audiobook is not about becoming smarter in the traditional sense. It's not about hacks, tricks, or productivity rituals. And it's not about learning more information. It's about removing what clouds your judgment. Because when clarity increases, money stops feeling emotional. When clarity increases, decisions stop feeling urgent. When clarity increases, complexity fades. Think of a glass of water that's been shaken. The particles swirl. You can't see through it. The problem isn't the water, it's the movement. When the glass is left alone, the water settles, and suddenly, everything becomes visible. Your mind works the same way. You don't need to add more. You need to let things settle. In the chapters ahead, you'll explore how clarity is built. Not overnight, not dramatically, but steadily. You'll see why intelligent people still make poor financial choices, why simplicity is a hidden advantage, and why calm is one of the most underappreciated forms of wealth. This is not about forcing better outcomes. It's about creating the mental conditions where better outcomes become inevitable. Because when your mind learns to think clearly, money has no choice but to follow. And that is where everything begins. 1. Why smart people still make bad money decisions. Most people assume that intelligence protects them from financial mistakes. They believe that if someone is educated, analytical, or naturally sharp, that person should automatically make good decisions with money. And when they see intelligent people struggle financially, they assume something else must be wrong. Bad luck, bad timing, or bad circumstances. But this assumption hides a deeper truth. Intelligence does not prevent poor money decisions. In many cases, it makes them more likely. Smart people are excellent at thinking. But money does not reward thinking alone. Money rewards clear thinking under emotional pressure. And this is where intelligence often fails. Highly intelligent people tend to trust their minds too much. They assume that because they can reason well, they're also deciding well. They mistake mental activity for mental clarity. But the two are not the same. Thinking is movement. Clarity is stillness. A busy mind feels productive. It analyzes, compares, forecasts, and simulates every possible outcome. But when money is involved, this constant movement often creates noise instead of insight. Smart people overanalyze. They overestimate their ability to time things. They construct elegant explanations for emotional decisions. And because the reasoning sounds sophisticated, the mistake goes unnoticed. This is why some of the worst financial decisions are made by people who can explain them beautifully. Money exposes something intelligence cannot fix: emotional blind spots. Fear does not announce itself as fear. It disguises itself as caution. Greed does not feel reckless, but it feels like opportunity. Ego does not say, "I want to prove something." It says, "I've thought this through." An intelligent mind is very good at defending what it already wants, and money constantly triggers wants: security, status, relief, control. This creates a dangerous combination. The smarter you are, the easier it is to justify poor decisions without realizing they are emotional. You don't panic loudly. You rationalize quietly. You don't chase trends blindly. You strategically allocate. You don't fear missing out. You optimize for upside. The language changes. The behavior does not. Another reason smart people struggle with money is that they are often trained to solve problems quickly. In school and work, speed is rewarded. The faster you answer, the smarter you appear. But money operates on a different timeline. Speed is not intelligence in finance. Patience is. Many intelligent people feel uncomfortable waiting. They want resolution. They want certainty. They want the mental tension to end. And so they make decisions not because the timing is right, but because the uncertainty feels heavy. This is subtle, but critical. When the mind feels tension, it looks for relief. Money decisions often become emotional painkillers. Buying, selling, changing strategies, switching plans. Not because the situation changed, but because the discomfort became intolerable. Less intelligent people often hesitate because they don't know enough. More intelligent people hesitate because they know too much. They see every possible risk, every alternative path, every scenario where things could go wrong. And instead of creating clarity, needing this knowledge fragments their focus. They end up stuck between options. And indecision is still a decision. There is also another trap intelligence creates: identity. Smart people are used to being right. They build self-worth around their ability to understand. When money challenges that identity, the ego reacts. Admitting uncertainty feels like weakness. Admitting mistakes feels like failure. So instead of stepping back, the mind doubles down. It searches for confirmation. It ignores contradictory signals. It becomes emotionally invested in being correct rather than being clear. Money does not care about your identity. It does not reward pride. It responds to alignment between perception and reality. This is why clarity matters more than intelligence. Clarity is not about having more information. It's about knowing which information to ignore. Clear thinkers do not need to feel smart in the moment. They are willing to look slow, boring, and unimpressive. They allow decisions to remain unresolved until the signal is clean. They don't ask, "What is the smartest move?" They ask, "What is the clearest one?" Smart people often chase optimal decisions. Clear thinkers focus on durable ones, and durability wins over time. There is a reason many financially stable people appear unimpressive on the surface. Their decisions lack drama. Their process lacks excitement. Their results come quietly. They are not smarter than everyone else. They are calmer. They don't react to every new piece of information. They don't need constant stimulation. They don't feel pressure to prove their intelligence through action. They understand something subtle. Money punishes cleverness when it replaces clarity. This does not mean intelligence is useless. It means intelligence must be subordinated to clarity. Thinking must serve perception, not the other way around. When the mind learns to slow down, intelligence becomes an asset instead of a liability. But until then, being smart is not protection. It's just potential. And unused potential often causes the most frustration. This is why the first step toward better financial decisions is not learning more. It's learning to recognize when your intelligence is being used to escape discomfort rather than see reality. Once that happens, something shifts. The mind stops trying to win. It starts trying to see, and that is when money decisions begin to change. 2. The real enemy. Emotional noise. Most people believe their financial problems come from lack of opportunity, lack of money, or lack of knowledge. They think if they just earned more, learned more, or found the right strategy, things would finally feel under control. But very few people stop to consider a more uncomfortable possibility. The real enemy is not income. It is not the market. It is not even a bad decision. The real enemy is emotional noise. Emotional noise is the constant internal chatter that distorts perception. It's the background hum of fear, urgency, comparison, hope, regret, and anticipation that quietly interferes with clear thinking. And money amplifies it more than almost anything else. When money is involved, emotions don't arrive honestly. They don't say, "I am fear." They say, "Be careful." They don't say, "I am greed." They say, "This is a rare opportunity." They don't say, "I feel insecure." They say, "Everyone else is doing better than me." Noise always sounds reasonable. That is what makes it dangerous. Most people don't make emotional decisions because they feel emotional. They make emotional decisions because they feel logical while emotional. This is the trap. Fear creates stories about protection. Greed creates stories about potential. Ego creates stories about intelligence and timing. And the mind listens. The more noise there is, the harder it becomes to tell the difference between signal and reaction. Every piece of information feels urgent. Every option feels loaded. Every decision feels heavier than it should. This is why money feels complicated for so many people. Not because there are too many options, but because there is too much internal interference. Think about how you behave when emotions are high. When you're anxious, you scan for certainty. When you're excited, you underestimate risk. When you're comparing yourself to others, you rush. When you're afraid of regret, you freeze. None of these states are neutral. And neutrality is where good financial decisions live. Money requires emotional neutrality to be handled well. Not emotional suppression, not emotional denial, but emotional distance. Without that distance, every decision becomes personal. A market dip feels like a personal threat. A missed opportunity feels like a personal failure. Someone else's success feels like an accusation. The noise grows louder, and once the noise is loud enough, clarity disappears. This is why people change strategies constantly. They are not responding to reality. They are responding to discomfort. They move money not because the facts changed, but because their emotional state did. They sell to feel relief. They buy to feel hope. They hold to avoid admitting they were wrong. All of these actions feel intentional, but they are driven by noise. One of the most overlooked sources of emotional noise is information overload. More news does not create clarity. More opinions do not create certainty. More data does not create better judgment. When the mind consumes too much information without enough reflection, it loses hierarchy. Everything feels equally important. Signals and distractions blur together. This is why people who follow markets obsessively often perform worse than those who check less frequently. Constant exposure creates constant reaction, and reaction is the opposite of clarity. Another powerful source of noise is comparison. Money is one of the easiest ways to compare lives. Numbers are visible, results are quantifiable, and social environments constantly reinforce the idea that you are behind. Comparison injects urgency where none is required. It pushes people to act before they are ready, to copy strategies they don't understand, to abandon plans that simply need time. Noise thrives on speed. Clear thinking thrives on patience. There is also a deeper layer of emotional noise that most people never question: their personal history with money. Early experiences, scarcity, instability, conflict, embarrassment, create emotional reflexes. These reflexes activate automatically, long before logic has a chance to intervene. And a person who grew up with financial uncertainty may feel unsafe even when things are objectively stable. A person who experienced sudden loss may overprotect and underinvest. A person who once got lucky may chase that feeling again. None of this is conscious. And that's the problem. Emotional noise is powerful precisely because it feels invisible. People think they are making decisions in the present when they are actually reacting to the past. Clear thinkers learn to notice this. They don't ask, "Is this decision smart?" They ask, "What emotion is speaking right now?" That single pause changes everything. Because once you can hear the noise, it loses authority. This is why wealthy individuals are often described as detached around money. Not because they don't care, but because they don't personalize outcomes. They understand that money decisions are probabilistic, not moral. A bad outcome does not mean they are bad. A good outcome does not mean they are brilliant. This emotional separation protects clarity. Without it, every result reinforces noise. Loss creates fear, gain creates overconfidence, volatility creates anxiety, and the cycle repeats. Noise feeds on attention. The more you engage with it, the louder it becomes. Clear thinking, on the other hand, is quiet. It does not shout. It does not demand immediate action. It does not need to be right today. It waits. This is why silence is such an underrated financial skill. Silence allows emotions to settle. Silence allows perspective to return. Silence reveals which thoughts persist and which fade. Most people are uncomfortable with silence because it forces them to sit with uncertainty. But uncertainty is not the enemy. Noise is. When emotional noise fades, something surprising happens. Money stops feeling dramatic. Decisions stop feeling heavy. The future stops feeling urgent. Not because everything is solved, but because perception has stabilized. And once perception stabilizes, clarity becomes possible. That clarity is not dramatic. It doesn't arrive as a breakthrough moment. It arrives as a sense of calm confidence that does not need to be defended. This is the foundation of sound financial behavior. Not control, not prediction, but clarity in the absence of noise. Until emotional noise is addressed, no strategy will work consistently, and no amount of intelligence will compensate, and no external change will feel sufficient. But when the noise quiets, even simple decisions begin to compound. And that is when money starts to feel manageable, not because it changed, but because your mind did. 3. Clear thinking is a skill, not a personality trait. Many people believe clarity is something you either have or you don't. They assume some people are naturally calm, decisive, and level-headed, while others are simply wired to be anxious, reactive, or overwhelmed, especially around money. From this perspective, clarity feels like a personality trait. Fixed, inherited, out of reach. That belief is comforting, and it is wrong. Clear thinking is not who you are. It is something you practice. Just like physical strength, clarity is built through repeated exposure, restraint, and recovery. And just like strength, it often develops quietly, without visible effort. Most people never develop clarity because they misunderstand what it looks like. They think clarity means confidence. They think clarity means speed. And they think clarity means having answers. But real clarity looks very different. Clarity often feels like not knowing yet, and being okay with that. This is where most people fail. When the mind encounters uncertainty, it wants closure. It wants to resolve the tension quickly. And so it reaches for opinions, rules, forecasts, or actions that create the feeling of certainty, even if the decision itself is weak. This is not a flaw in character. It is an untrained reflex. The human brain is designed to reduce uncertainty. In most areas of life, this is helpful, but in finance, where outcomes unfold slowly and probabilities matter more than certainties, this reflex becomes a liability. Clear thinkers train themselves to delay this reflex. They do not eliminate emotion. They learn not to obey it. This is the skill. Clear thinking begins with the ability to notice internal pressure without responding to it. Pressure to act. Pressure to fix. Pressure to decide. Most people confuse pressure with urgency. They feel tension and assume something must be done. But pressure is internal, urgency is external, and the two are rarely aligned. Training clarity means learning to separate them. When pressure arises, the untrained mind reacts. When pressure arises, the trained mind observes. Observation creates distance. Distance creates choice. This distance may feel uncomfortable at first. In fact, it often feels irresponsible. People worry that if they don't act quickly, they'll miss out or fall behind. But clarity does not come from moving faster. It comes from moving cleaner. Clean thinking removes unnecessary motion. This is why clarity is so rare. And modern environments constantly reward reaction. Notifications, headlines, commentary, and social proof all push the mind toward immediate engagement. Stillness feels unnatural, but money rewards those who can remain still while others move. Clear thinkers understand that most decisions do not need to be made today. They understand that doing nothing is often the most disciplined action available. This is not passivity, it is restraint. Restraint is a skill, and like any skill, it must be trained deliberately. Training clarity does not require complex techniques. It requires consistency in small, unglamorous moments. Moments when you choose not to react. Moments when you allow discomfort to pass without turning it into action. Over time, this builds tolerance for uncertainty. And tolerance for uncertainty is one of the most valuable financial skills a person can develop. Without it, every fluctuation feels like a threat. With it, volatility becomes background noise. Another critical aspect of clarity is the ability to simplify. Unclear thinkers try to account for everything. They build elaborate models in their heads. They try to predict every variable. The result is mental overload. Clear thinkers reduce. They focus on what truly matters and ignore the rest. Not because the rest is unimportant, but because attention is limited. Clarity is the art of choosing what not to think about. This is especially important with money, where infinite opinions exist and certainty is impossible. Clear thinkers do not seek perfect information. They seek sufficient information, and then they stop. Till they understand that beyond a certain point, more input reduces decision quality. This discipline feels counterintuitive to intelligent people who are used to learning more as a solution. But clarity often improves when learning pauses. Silence, reflection, and time do work that information cannot. There is also a misconception that clear thinkers are unemotional. They are not. They feel fear. They feel doubt. They feel temptation. The difference is that they do not confuse feelings with instructions. An emotion is information. It is not a command. Training clarity means learning to interpret emotions without surrendering to them. Fear may indicate risk, but not always danger. Excitement may indicate opportunity, but not always value. Clear thinkers treat emotions like signals to be examined, not orders to be followed. This creates a different relationship with money. Decisions become less dramatic. Outcomes become less personal. The mind becomes steadier, and steadiness compounds. Clarity also improves through repetition. The more often you slow down, observe, and choose deliberately, the easier it becomes. Over time, the mind learns that it does not need to panic to survive. This learning is subtle but powerful. Eventually, clarity becomes the default, not because the world is calmer, but because the mind is trained. This is why clarity should never be mistaken for personality. It is not something you are born with. It is something you earn through practice. Anyone can develop it. Few are willing to endure the discomfort required, because clarity demands patience. It demands humility, and it demands the willingness to feel uncertain without escaping it. But for those who commit to this training, something changes. Money stops feeling like a constant problem to solve. Decisions stop draining energy. Confidence becomes quiet and grounded. Not because outcomes are guaranteed, but because the process is trusted. Clear thinking does not promise wealth. It makes wealth possible, and more importantly, it makes the journey calmer. In the long run, this calm is not a side benefit, it is the advantage. Because when the mind is clear, you don't need to rush, prove, or react. You simply see. And seeing clearly, again and again, is how financial stability is actually built. 4. Why simplicity creates wealth. Most people associate wealth with complexity. They assume that making money requires sophisticated strategies, constant optimization, advanced tools, and endless adjustments. The more complicated something looks, the more legitimate it feels. Complexity signals intelligence. Simplicity, on the other hand, feels naive, almost irresponsible. This belief quietly sabotages long-term wealth, because money does not reward complexity. It rewards clarity repeated over time. Complexity feels productive because it keeps the mind busy. It creates the illusion of control. Charts, models, updates, and strategies give the sense that something is happening. But activity is not progress, and motion is not direction. Simplicity removes noise, and removing noise reveals what actually matters. The wealthiest financial systems in the world are not complicated at their core. They are built on a few simple principles applied consistently for decades: ownership, patience, risk control, time. The complexity people admire usually appears after wealth is built, not before. This distinction is critical. Most people try to start with complexity. They layer ideas, tools, and tactics on top of uncertainty, hoping sophistication will protect them from mistakes. Instead, it creates confusion. Confusion leads to hesitation. Hesitation leads to inconsistency, and inconsistency destroys compounding. Simplicity is not about doing less. It is about doing fewer things better. Clear thinkers reduce decisions. They understand that every decision carries cognitive cost. The more decisions you make, and the more likely you are to make a bad one, especially under emotional pressure. This is why simplicity is a financial advantage. When your system is simple, fewer decisions are required. When fewer decisions are required, emotions have less opportunity to interfere. And when emotions interfere less, outcomes improve quietly. This is not theory. It is observable behavior. People who build wealth over long periods often follow boring routines. They invest regularly. They avoid unnecessary changes. They ignore short-term noise. They resist the urge to do something when nothing needs to be done. From the outside, this looks passive. From the inside, it requires discipline. Simplicity also creates durability. Complex systems break easily. They depend on precise conditions, constant monitoring, and perfect execution. But when one variable changes, and it always does, the system collapses. Simple systems are resilient. They can tolerate mistakes, delays, and uncertainty. They don't require brilliance to maintain. They survive stress. Wealth built through simplicity lasts longer because it does not depend on continuous effort or perfect timing. This is why simplicity compounds. Compounding is not dramatic. It does not reward clever adjustments. It rewards staying in the game. And staying in the game requires systems that are easy to maintain during emotional storms. Complex strategies tend to fail, not because they are wrong, but because they are unsustainable. People abandon them when stress rises. Simpler approaches survive because they require less emotional energy. There is also a psychological reason simplicity works. The mind craves closure. It wants to feel that something has been handled. Complex plans never feel complete. There is always another variable, another improvement, another adjustment. This creates low-level anxiety. Simple plans create mental relief. Relief reduces emotional urgency. Reduced urgency improves decision quality. This feedback loop matters more than people realize. When money feels manageable, behavior improves. When behavior improves, results follow. Simplicity also sharpens focus. When too many options exist, attention fragments. People jump between ideas without committing to any. They mistake flexibility for intelligence, when in reality it is avoidance. Clear thinkers choose a narrow path and stay on it. They accept that by choosing one approach, they are rejecting others. They understand that no strategy captures every opportunity, and that this is acceptable. The goal is not to capture everything. The goal is to capture enough consistently. Simplicity supports this mindset. Another hidden benefit of simplicity is emotional insulation. When systems are simple, outcomes feel less personal. You're not attached to intricate reasoning or clever designs. You're attached to process, and process is easier to trust than predictions. This emotional distance protects clarity. Losses feel like part of the system, not a failure of intelligence. Gains feel expected, not proof of brilliance. This emotional neutrality prevents overreaction in both directions. Complex systems encourage ego. Simple systems encourage humility. And humility is protective in finance. Simplicity also reduces the temptation to interfere. Many people sabotage their own results by constantly adjusting. They tweak, rebalance, switch, optimize, often in response to short-term outcomes. This behavior feels responsible, but it often reduces performance. Clear thinkers understand that most interference is emotional. They simplify not just their systems, but their relationship with action. They know when not to act. This restraint allows time to do its work. Time is the most powerful variable in wealth creation, but time only works when left undisturbed. Complexity invites disturbance. Simplicity invites patience. This is why wealth built through simplicity often looks slow at first. There are no dramatic moments, no sudden breakthroughs. Progress appears almost invisible until it isn't. Simplicity reveals its power gradually, almost quietly, without fanfare. And by the time others notice, the foundation is already set. It's important to understand that simplicity is not ignorance. It is an intentional reduction. It is choosing clarity over stimulation, durability over excitement, and consistency over cleverness. This choice feels uncomfortable in a world that rewards novelty and speed. But money does not follow trends. It follows behavior, and behavior improves when the mind is not overwhelmed. The wealthiest people are not those who know the most. They are those who need the least complexity to act well. They don't confuse motion with mastery. They don't confuse information with insight. They don't confuse effort with progress. They simplify. And through that simplicity, they give compounding the space it needs to work. This is why simplicity creates wealth. Not because it is easy, but because it removes what silently destroys results. When complexity fades, clarity remains. When clarity remains, consistency follows. And when consistency meets time, wealth becomes inevitable. Not dramatic, not fast, but durable. And durability is the form of wealth that lasts. 5. Thinking in decades, not days. Most people think about money these days. They think in terms of paychecks, bills, monthly expenses, quarterly results, and yearly goals. Their financial world is framed by short windows of time where progress must be visible quickly to feel real. This way of thinking feels practical, it feels responsible, and it quietly creates stress. Because money does not respond well to short-term thinking. Short time horizons magnify emotion. Every fluctuation feels meaningful. Every delay feels like failure. Every small loss feels dangerous. The mind becomes reactive, not because the situation is urgent, but because the time frame is too small. When you think in days, everything feels close. When everything feels close, everything feels personal. This is why so many people feel exhausted by money, even when nothing dramatic is happening. Their mind is constantly zoomed in, and zoomed-in thinking amplifies noise. Clear thinkers zoom out. They think in decades. This does not mean they ignore the present. It means they place the present inside a larger context. A single decision is no longer judged by its immediate outcome, but by whether it aligns with a long-term direction. This shift changes everything. When the time horizon expands, emotional intensity drops, urgency fades. Small mistakes lose their power. Temporary setbacks no longer feel like threats to identity or security. Decade thinking creates emotional room. And emotional room is where clarity lives. People who think in decades are not in a hurry to be right. They are focused on staying aligned. They understand that most meaningful results in life, skills, relationships, health, and wealth, are the product of slow accumulation. Nothing valuable compounds on a daily timeline. Yet most financial behavior is driven by daily feedback. Prices move, news breaks, opinions change, social comparisons intensify, and the mind reacts, believing that something must be done now. This reaction is rarely intelligent. It is temporal pressure. Short-term thinking turns information into noise. Long-term thinking turns information into background context. Clear thinkers ask different questions. Instead of asking, "What should I do today?" they ask, "Is this still the right direction over the next 10 years?" This question filters out most distractions automatically. Many opportunities disappear when viewed through a decade lens. Main trends lose their appeal. Short-lived advantages reveal their fragility. What remains are decisions rooted in durability. Durability is the central benefit of long-term thinking. Decade thinkers build systems they can live with for a long time. They choose strategies that require minimal adjustment. They favor consistency over optimization and resilience over speed. They understand that the real risk is not missing opportunities, it is abandoning sound plans too early. Short-term thinkers constantly restart. Long-term thinkers stay. Staying is underrated. Staying allows compounding to work. It allows habits to solidify. It allows learning to accumulate, and it allows mistakes to be absorbed rather than amplified. This is why time horizon matters more than intelligence. And two people with identical knowledge can experience completely different outcomes simply because one thinks in weeks and the other thinks in decades. The first reacts. The second absorbs. Thinking in decades also changes your relationship with uncertainty. Short-term thinking demands certainty. You want to know what will happen next. You want reassurance. You want confirmation that you're doing the right thing. Decade thinking accepts uncertainty as permanent. It understands that clarity does not come from predicting outcomes. It comes from choosing principles that remain valid across changing conditions. This acceptance is calming. When uncertainty is expected, it no longer creates panic. It becomes part of the process. The mind stops fighting reality and starts working with it. This is a major psychological shift. Most people are exhausted not because money is hard, but because they are constantly trying to resolve the future too early. They want answers before answers are available. Decade thinkers wait. They allow time to reveal information. They trust gradual feedback rather than instant validation. They are willing to look wrong in the short term in order to be right over time. This willingness is rare, and rarity creates advantage. Thinking in decades also protects against emotional extremes. Short-term gains create overconfidence. Short-term losses create fear. Long-term perspective smooths both. Success becomes expected rather than intoxicating. Failure becomes instructive rather than devastating. The emotional range narrows and decision quality improves. This emotional stability is not accidental. It is a byproduct of time horizon. People who think long-term do not need constant stimulation. They are not addicted to updates or opinions. They check less, react less, and interfere less. This restraint preserves energy. Energy that would otherwise be spent worrying, adjusting, or second-guessing is redirected toward maintaining alignment. Alignment is more powerful than optimization. Optimization tries to squeeze more from the present. Alignment ensures the present fits into the future you're building. This is why decade thinkers often appear indifferent to short-term outcomes. They are not detached. They are focused. They know that meaningful change happens slowly, and because they accept that, they do not demand constant proof. Demanding proof creates pressure. Pressure creates mistakes. Thinking in decades removes that pressure, and it allows you to choose actions that feel boring but effective. It allows you to ignore noise without feeling irresponsible. It allows you to move steadily without constantly questioning yourself. Most importantly, it changes how money feels. Money stops being a daily scoreboard. It stops being a source of emotional feedback. It becomes a long-term tool. A tool does not need constant attention, it needs proper use. This perspective does not guarantee success, but it dramatically reduces self-sabotage. And in finance, avoiding self-sabotage is often more important than finding the perfect strategy. When you think about decades, you stop asking money to validate you. You stop asking it to move fast. You stop asking it to be exciting. You allow it to do what it does best. Grow quietly over time. This is the power of long-term thinking. Not because it makes you smarter, but because it makes you calmer. And calm, sustained over decades, is one of the strongest advantages anyone can have around money. 6. The mental rules. Wealthy people. Live by wealthy people do not wake up each day trying to outsmart the world. They are not constantly searching for better tricks, sharper insights, or hidden opportunities that others have missed. In fact, one of the most consistent traits among financially stable people is how few rules they live by. But those rules are non-negotiable. Most people think the wealthy succeed because they are flexible. In reality, they succeed because they are mentally disciplined. They limit their choices. They reduce internal debate. They remove emotion from decisions that matter. These are not tactical rules. They are mental ones, and they quietly shape every financial outcome. The first rule is simple, but difficult to live by. Never make important money decisions in an extreme emotional state. The wealthy individuals understand that emotions distort perception. When fear is high, risks look larger than they are. When excitement is high, dangers disappear from view. Neither state produces clarity, so they wait. They do not rush to act when markets move sharply, when headlines feel urgent, or when opportunities appear suddenly. They allow emotional intensity to settle before committing to anything. This patience alone eliminates a large percentage of common financial mistakes. Most people lose money not because they lack opportunity, but because they act while emotionally compromised. The wealthy do not. Another core rule is this: if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough to risk money on it. Wealthy thinkers are suspicious of complexity. They know that confusion often masquerades as sophistication, and if an idea cannot be understood clearly, it cannot be trusted reliably. This does not mean they avoid advanced concepts. It means they insist on internal clarity. If something feels vague, overly technical, or dependent on perfect conditions, they step back. They do not confuse potential returns with actual understanding. This rule protects them from chasing trends they don't fully grasp. Clarity comes before commitment. A third rule follows naturally. Protecting capital matters more than growing it quickly. Most people approach money with an upside mindset. They focus on how much they can gain. Wealthy individuals focus first on how much they can lose. They understand that losing money creates more damage than gaining money creates benefit. Loss introduces fear, hesitation, and emotional distortion that can last for years. So they prioritize survival. They choose strategies that allow them to stay in the game during difficult periods. They accept slower growth in exchange for durability. They understand that compounding only works if you are still standing. This mindset is not pessimistic, it is realistic. Another important mental rule is, do not confuse activity with progress. Wealthy people are comfortable doing very little when nothing meaningful needs to be done. They do not need constant motion to feel productive. They do not equate busyness with intelligence. Most people feel uneasy when they are not acting. This discomfort pushes them to adjust, tweak, and interfere, often unnecessarily. Wealthy thinkers resist this urge. They know that many good decisions require time to work. Interfering too often reduces the effectiveness of otherwise sound plans. They understand that restraint is not laziness, it is discipline. This rule alone prevents countless self-inflicted errors. Another mental rule is deeply tied to clarity. Separate outcomes from identity. Wealthy individuals do not allow financial outcomes to define who they are. A bad result does not mean they are incompetent. A good result does not mean they are brilliant. This separation is critical. When identity becomes tied to results, objectivity disappears. People defend decisions instead of evaluating them. They rationalize mistakes instead of learning from them. Ego replaces clarity. Wealthy thinkers avoid this trap. They evaluate decisions on process, not outcome. They ask whether the choice was reasonable given the information available at the time. This allows them to adjust without emotional baggage. Your money becomes a system to manage, not a reflection of self-worth. Another rule they live by is, avoid decisions that require you to be right quickly. Strategies that demand immediate success are fragile. They leave no room for error, delay, or randomness. Wealthy individuals are cautious of any approach that only works if everything goes right immediately. They prefer systems that allow time to correct mistakes. This preference reduces stress and improves consistency. It also aligns naturally with long-term thinking. When time is allowed to work, fewer decisions need to be perfect. Perfection is not required. Staying power is. There is also a powerful rule around information. More input does not automatically create better decisions. Wealthy people are selective about what they consume. They limit exposure to news, commentary, and opinions that trigger emotional reactions. They understand that attention is a finite resource. Too much information creates noise, not clarity. So they reduce. They focus on a small set of principles and data points that matter to their strategy. Everything else is treated as background noise. This selective attention preserves mental energy and decision quality. Another key rule is subtle but important. Consistency beats intensity. Most people approach money in bursts. They are highly focused for short periods, then disengaged. Wealthy individuals prefer steady, repeatable behavior. They build routines that are easy to maintain. They avoid strategies that require constant vigilance or emotional effort. This consistency allows progress to accumulate quietly. Intensity feels impressive. Consistency produces results. One of the most overlooked rules is this: calm is a competitive advantage. Wealthy individuals understand that calm allows clearer perception. When others panic, they see options. When others rush, they wait. When others react, they observe. This calm is not accidental. It is protected deliberately. They avoid environments and behaviors that amplify emotional volatility. They choose stability over stimulation. This emotional regulation improves decision quality in subtle but powerful ways. Finally, there is a rule that ties everything together. Clarity comes before action, always. Wealthy people do not act to feel better. They act when things are clear, and if clarity is missing, they wait. They do not force certainty. They do not rush understanding. This patience creates alignment between perception and reality. Most financial mistakes are made in moments when clarity is absent, but action feels urgent. Wealthy individuals recognize this pattern and refuse to participate in it. These rules are not dramatic. They do not promise excitement or rapid transformation, but they work. They reduce error. They preserve capital. They protect clarity. Over time, these small advantages compound into something significant. Wealthy people do not win because they break rules. They win because they live by a few and never violate them. And once these mental rules become habitual, money stops feeling chaotic. It becomes manageable, predictable in behavior, if not in outcome, and quietly aligned with long-term stability. That is the real power of clear thinking. 7. Why calm is a financial advantage. Most people underestimate calm. They associate it with passivity, hesitation, or lack of ambition. In a world that celebrates speed, confidence, and bold action, calm can look like weakness. It doesn't signal urgency. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't create excitement. And yet, in money, calm is one of the most powerful advantages a person can have. Because money does not reward intensity, it rewards control. Calm is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to experience emotion without being driven by it. This distinction matters more than most people realize. Financial environments are emotionally charged by design. Prices fluctuate, narratives shift, opinions clash. The constant movement creates a sense that something important is always happening. And when something feels important, now the mind wants to respond. This is where most mistakes begin. An uncalm mind reacts to movement as if it were meaning. A price drop feels like danger. A sudden rise feels like an opportunity. Noise is mistaken for signal. Calm breaks this illusion. When the mind is calm, movement is observed rather than obeyed. The individual can distinguish between what is happening and what matters. This separation is subtle, but it changes everything. Calm slows perception, and slower perception allows deeper understanding. People often believe that faster thinkers have an advantage. But in finance, speed often amplifies error. Quick reactions are usually emotional reactions. They bypass reflection. They bypass context. Calm thinkers do not rush to interpret. They allow information to settle before assigning meaning. And they know that first impressions are rarely accurate when emotions are involved. This patience protects clarity. Calm also reduces the need to act. Many financial losses occur not because of bad decisions, but because of unnecessary ones. People feel compelled to do something, to adjust, to respond, to intervene, simply to relieve internal discomfort. Calm removes this pressure. When you are calm, inaction does not feel irresponsible, it feels intentional. You understand that not every movement requires a response, and not every opportunity needs to be captured. This restraint is rare, and rarity creates advantage. Calm individuals make fewer decisions, but better ones. They conserve mental energy. They avoid emotional fatigue. And because they are not constantly reacting, they preserve consistency. Consistency compounds. And another reason calm is a financial advantage is that it widens perspective. When emotions run high, the mind narrows. It focuses on immediate threats or rewards. Long-term consequences fade from view. This narrowing leads to short-term thinking and impulsive behavior. Calm widens the lens. It allows you to see how a decision fits into a broader trajectory. You are less likely to sacrifice long-term stability for short-term relief. You are more willing to endure temporary discomfort in service of durable outcomes. This willingness separates those who build wealth from those who constantly reset. Calm also protects against social pressure. Financial decisions are rarely made in isolation. Other people's opinions, success stories, and failures create a background of comparison. This comparison generates urgency and self-doubt. Because an uncalm mind internalizes this noise. It feels behind, it feels exposed, it feels compelled to catch up. Calm creates distance. With distance, other people's actions lose their power to dictate your behavior. You are no longer pulled by trends or intimidated by narratives. You can observe without absorbing. This emotional independence is invaluable. People who remain calm during volatile periods often appear detached or indifferent. But this appearance is misleading. They are not disengaged, they are grounded. They understand that volatility is normal, that uncertainty is constant, that dramatic reaction rarely produces lasting benefits. They do not expect comfort, they expect fluctuation. And because they expect it, they are not shaken by it. Calm also improves learning. When emotions dominate, the mind defends itself. It looks for justification rather than insight. It resists feedback. Mistakes become painful rather than instructive. Calm allows reflection. When you are calm, you can examine outcomes without self-judgment. You can identify patterns without blame. You can adjust behavior without ego. This learning loop accelerates improvement. In contrast, emotional decision-making creates repetition. The same mistakes occur again and again, disguised as new situations. Calm breaks this cycle. Another overlooked benefit of calm is trust, in yourself and in process. When the mind is reactive, trust erodes. You second-guess decisions, you question plans, you constantly look for reassurance. This creates instability. Calm restores trust. You trust that you can handle uncertainty. You trust that not knowing everything is acceptable. You trust that time can work in your favor. This trust reduces the urge to interfere. Interference is one of the most common forms of self-sabotage in finance. People disrupt sound strategies because they cannot tolerate emotional discomfort. Calm increases tolerance. Tolerance allows time to do its work. Calm also changes how success and failure are experienced. Without calm, success creates overconfidence and failure creates fear. Both distort future decisions. Calm smooths these extremes. Success becomes confirmation, not intoxication. Failure becomes information, not identity. This emotional balance keeps behavior aligned over long periods. It is important to understand that calm is not passive acceptance, and it does not mean ignoring risks or avoiding responsibility. It means responding deliberately rather than reflexively. Calm individuals still act, but their actions are chosen, not forced. They do not act to feel better. They act because clarity is present. This difference is everything. Most people seek excitement in money because excitement feels like progress. Calm feels uneventful, but uneventful is where compounding lives. Compounding requires time, consistency, and minimal interference. Calm supports all three. This is why calm people often outperform more aggressive ones over long periods, not because they are smarter, but because they avoid the emotional traps that erode results. Calm is a form of discipline that does not require force. It is maintained through awareness, expectation, and acceptance. You expect uncertainty. You accept volatility. You observe emotions without obeying them. Over time, this becomes natural. The mind learns that it does not need to panic to survive. And once that lesson is internalized, financial decisions become lighter. Money stops feeling like a constant test. It becomes a tool that responds best to steady hands. In the end, calm is not a personality trait. It is a practiced state, and like clarity, it can be trained. Those who train it gain an advantage that is difficult to see but impossible to ignore over time. Because while others react, rush, and regret, the calm simply continue. And continuing without unnecessary disruption is often all that wealth really requires. 8. Training your mind without motivation or force. Most people believe change requires force. They believe that to think differently, behave better, or make smarter decisions with money, they must push themselves harder. More discipline, more motivation, more pressure, more control. This belief feels logical, and it quietly creates burnout. Because force does not create clarity, it creates resistance. When people try to fix their financial behavior through motivation, they often succeed briefly and then relapse. They feel energized for a short time, make a few changes, and then slowly return to old patterns. This is not because they are weak. It is because force is unsustainable. Clear thinking is not built through intensity. It is built through awareness and reduction. The mind does not need to be whipped into better behavior, as it needs to be trained to see more clearly. And seeing clearly does not require effort. It requires space. This is one of the most misunderstood ideas in personal finance. People assume wealthy individuals are constantly disciplined. In reality, they design their mental environment so that discipline is rarely required. They remove friction instead of fighting it. They do not rely on motivation. They rely on structure. Training the mind without force begins with a simple shift. Stop trying to control outcomes and start observing reactions. Most financial mistakes do not come from lack of willpower. They come from automatic responses that go unnoticed. People act before they realize they are acting. Training clarity means slowing this process down, not by stopping emotions, but by noticing them earlier. So when you begin to notice emotional signals, tension, urgency, excitement, fear, without immediately responding, you create a gap. That gap is where choice appears. This does not require motivation. It requires attention. Attention is gentler than discipline and far more effective. Many people avoid this kind of awareness because it feels uncomfortable. Sitting with uncertainty, resisting the urge to act, and allowing emotions to pass without resolution feels unnatural. But this discomfort is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of training. Just as muscles grow through controlled stress, clarity grows through controlled non-action. You allow the impulse to act to rise and then fall without obeying it. Over time, the mind learns something important. It learns that nothing bad happens when you don't react immediately. This lesson is transformative. Once the mind realizes that urgency is often false, it stops generating so much of it. Emotional intensity decreases. Decisions become lighter. thinking becomes cleaner. This is how clarity is trained, without force. Another key element is reducing exposure to unnecessary stimulation. Motivation-based systems often rely on constant input: videos, posts, advice, updates. This keeps the mind activated but not clear. Stimulation creates movement, not insight. Clear thinkers consume less. They are intentional about what they allow into their mental space. They limit news. They limit opinions. They avoid environments that amplify emotion without adding understanding. This is not avoidance, it is protection. When mental input decreases, internal noise decreases. When noise decreases, clarity rises naturally. So no motivation required. Another important principle is repetition without pressure. Clear thinking is reinforced through repeated, low-stakes observation, not through dramatic changes or high expectations. Small moments of awareness practiced consistently create long-term shifts. For example, noticing how you feel before making a financial decision without changing anything begins to weaken unconscious patterns. You're not trying to behave differently. You're simply noticing. This notice accumulates. Eventually, behavior changes on its own. This is how habits actually shift, quietly, without force. Trying to force better behavior often backfires because it creates internal conflict. One part of the mind pushes, another resists. This creates fatigue and frustration. Observation creates alignment instead of conflict. When the mind sees clearly, it chooses differently without being told to. This is why clarity-based change lasts longer than motivation-based change. Another aspect of training without force is accepting imperfection. Motivation thrives on ideal outcomes. It demands progress, consistency, and visible improvement. When reality deviates, as it always does, motivation collapses. Clarity does not require perfection. Clear thinkers accept that mistakes are part of the process. They do not turn errors into moral failures. They view them as feedback. This reduces emotional charge. When mistakes are not emotionally expensive, learning accelerates. People become more willing to examine their behavior honestly. This honesty is essential for financial growth. Force-based systems encourage denial. Clarity-based systems encourage insight. Training the mind without force also means redefining discipline. Discipline is often imagined as effortful control, pushing through resistance. But in practice, the most effective discipline is environmental. You don't need discipline to avoid poor decisions if the triggers for those decisions are absent. Clear thinkers remove triggers. They automate what should be automatic. They pre-decide what matters. They simplify choices so that clarity is maintained without constant effort. This is why they appear calm. Not because they are stronger, but because they are not constantly fighting themselves. Another subtle but powerful practice is slowing down decision speed. Speed feels intelligent. Slowness feels risky. But slowness creates room for perspective. When you slow decisions slightly, especially around money, you reduce emotional interference. You don't need to delay everything. You only need to delay enough for clarity to surface. This delay does not require motivation. It requires permission. Permission to wait. Permission to not know yet. Permission to not act. Most people never give themselves this permission. They believe inaction equals failure. But in reality, inaction is often the most disciplined response available. Clear thinkers understand this. They do not rush clarity. They allow it. Over time, the mind becomes trained to prefer clarity over stimulation. It begins to reject unnecessary drama. It stops craving constant engagement. This shift is subtle but profound. Money decisions stop feeling heavy. Choices feel cleaner. Regret decreases. Not because outcomes are perfect, but because decisions are aligned. This alignment is the real goal. Training the mind without force is not about becoming passive. It is about becoming precise. You act when clarity is present, and you wait when it is not. This rhythm creates stability, and stability is the foundation of long-term wealth. Most people try to change their financial life by doing more. Clear thinkers change it by reacting less. This reduction is not lazy, it is intelligent. Because when the mind is no longer pushed, pulled, and pressured, it begins to function the way it was designed to, seeing patterns, weighing probabilities, and choosing deliberately. No hype, no motivation cycles, no burnout. Just clarity, built quietly, through awareness and restraint. And once that clarity is established, the money stops feeling like something that must be controlled. It becomes something that can be handled, calmly, consistently, and with confidence that does not need to be forced. When your mind becomes clear, money follows. Naturally, money has never been as complicated as it feels. What feels complicated is the constant tension around it. Overthinking, the emotional pressure, the urgency to act, fix, optimize, and control outcomes that were never fully controllable to begin with. Throughout this audiobook, one idea has quietly repeated itself in different forms. Money does not confuse people. Unclear thinking does. When the mind is crowded with noise, fear, comparison, impatience, identity, urgency, every financial decision feels heavier than it needs to be. Even simple choices become exhausting. Even progress feels fragile. But when clarity increases, something subtle happens. Money stops demanding emotional energy. Decisions stop feeling personal. Uncertainty stops feeling threatening. And not because the world becomes predictable, but because your relationship with it changes. Clear thinking does not eliminate risk. It eliminates unnecessary reactions. It does not guarantee perfect outcomes. It creates consistent behavior. And consistent behavior, sustained over time, is what quietly builds wealth. One of the most important realizations is this: you do not need to become more aggressive, more motivated, or more intense to improve your financial life. In fact, those qualities often create the very instability people are trying to escape. What you need is less noise, less urgency, less comparison, less emotional interference. Clarity is subtractive. As you remove what does not matter, what remains becomes obvious. Decisions simplify. Systems stabilize. And money begins to function as a tool rather than a source of stress. This shift does not happen overnight. It is not dramatic. There is no single moment of transformation. It happens gradually as you practice noticing instead of reacting, waiting instead of rushing, and choosing alignment over stimulation. At first, this feels uncomfortable. The mind is used to movement. It craves resolution. It equates action with safety. But over time, stillness becomes familiar. And in that stillness, perspective returns. You begin to see that most financial pressure is self-generated. You realize that many decisions do not need to be made today. You understand that doing nothing, when clarity is absent, is often the most disciplined move available. This is where calm emerges naturally. Not forced, not performative, but stable. Calm allows time to work. Time allows compounding to work. And compounding is what turns ordinary decisions into extraordinary results. The people who build lasting wealth are rarely the loudest or the fastest. They are the ones who think clearly when others are overwhelmed, stay consistent when others reset, and remain patient when others demand immediate proof. They do not win by intensity. They win by alignment, and alignment begins in the mind. If there is one thing to take from this audiobook, let it be this: you do not need to chase money. You need to stop clouding your thinking. As clarity becomes your default state, money stops feeling like a problem to solve. It becomes something you manage calmly, deliberately, and without drama. Not because you control the future, but because you are no longer controlled by fear of it. Clear thinking does not make wealth instant, and it makes it inevitable over time. And once you experience that shift, you will notice something important. Money no longer feels complicated. It feels quiet. And in that quiet, you will find not just better decisions, but a steadier, more confident way of moving through life. That is where true wealth begins.